Hello, beautiful people. My name is Athol. Let's jump into it. And today I'm continuing the series about anxious wives and what husbands can do to better understand them. And this episode is all about why anxious wives are so often control freaks and really how you manage that. So we're going to get into why they're control freaks, how that plays out, and what to do about it. So this is going to be a slightly longer than my usual videos, but everything is really connected, so I think this is one worth watching. So, remembering from yesterday, the whole point of anxiety is to make sure bad things don't happen to you. We all have some sort of mild to moderate level of anxiety. This is the thing that makes us look both ways before we cross the street. This is the thing that makes us pay attention to dotting our I's and crossing our T's on, paperwork or whatever. Some anxiety is really helpful and good, and we need it. But for someone who is highly anxious, you are far more worried about bad things happening than has any basis in reality. You are freaking out that things are all going to go wrong, they're going to blow up, and you're going to be in trouble somehow. And the reality is, no one probably cares all that much, or it's pretty safe. So, highly anxious people are really worried that bad things are going to happen. So they're worried that everything is out of control, everything is dangerous, everything might blow up. So they take action to make their anxiety go down. So if everything is out of control to them and they're worried about it's all going to blow up, they take action, they get in control, they try and make everything safe, they try and minimize all the dangers, they try and account for every possible threat imaginable, and they try and squish everything and everyone around them into a nice, safe, controllable box of behavior, things that they can do. So this is why anxious wives are so often control freaks. They're just trying to make the anxiety go away. And this anxiety plays out in three really common ways. It plays out in some others, but these are the three most common ones. And it all ties into their fears and what is bothering them, what's making them anxious. So very often there is a fear of rejection, a fear of abandonment, a fear of not being loved, not being wanted, of not being cared for. They worry that their husband is just not interested in them. So to make that anxiety go away, they demand a lot of attention, a lot of points of contact, and a lot of expressions of his interest in her. And they tend to demand that a lot, and they need to get that response as quickly as possible. So this is the thing where the wife is calling the husband or boyfriend at work 4 or 5 times a day. This is the thing where if he doesn't respond to a text message within 30 seconds to a minute, she's starting to freak out and have a meltdown. This is the thing where you're 5 minutes late to the airport picking her up, and she's just beside herself, angry, freaked out that you were late, even though you were caught in traffic for an hour. So there's all these demands for attention, to come at me, to be in contact, to love me, to care about me, to be committed to me, to be devoted to me. Now, because they're anxious, you're very often failing that comfort link in the chain of seduction, which means it doesn't matter what the energy levels, it doesn't matter how good your initiations are, it doesn't matter how good in bed you are, they are not interested in sex because they don't feel safe, they don't feel comfortable, so their whole sexuality with you shuts down. Which means they never want to get themselves in a situation where they think you're going to make a move on them, where they think you're going to try and have sex with them. So the first one is, pay me lots of attention. Come at me. Just keep in contact. And on the other hand, but don't want to have the sex with him, so I need to keep you at arm's length, and I need to have space, and I need you not to crowd me, and don't smother me. And very clearly, those are two sort of contradictory demands. The third one is needing to do things and trying to make things all good and safe and perfect for the children. And this is a sort of a really nice handle for them to put their anxiety on, because it's very hard to justify not doing something for a child, and children are just bottomless pits of things you could do for them. There is always something more you could have, should have done. And it's a real short jump from, I have to do this, or I'm a bad mom, or you have to let me do this, or you better do this, because if you don't, that means you're a bad dad. And if you're a bad dad, I can't be with you. I need to arm's length, and you're never going to get laid. So the children act as really nice sort of human shields buffering between the first demand, pay me more attention, communicate more, and also I need to hold you at arm's length and don't crowd me. So he gets calls all day at work. She's mad when he's 10 minutes home late, even though he needed to make a detour to get gas. She cheers him a new one for that. She spends the whole evening paying attention to the children and gets to bed exhausted at the end of the day and just too tired for anything. And that's how it plays out, probably night after night, for a lot of really anxious couples. So all three of these things can come in a giant tidal wave of double bind. And it really is a double bind. He can't win either way. Because on one hand, the demand is, stay inside this little box, only do this. And that little box gets smaller and smaller and smaller of things he's allowed to do, things he's allowed to think, things he's allowed to say. And on the other hand, if he pushes back on any of this, she gets really, really mad, really, really quickly. And so he's caught in this, like, can I only do this small amount of things, or am I going to face just her, screaming and yelling and crying and ranting at me? And the reason it goes to this really high emotion really quickly, is because her anxiety is in a negative emotional state already. It's driven by fear. It's driven by a sense of she might lose something. So it's a very short jump from feeling fear to feeling angry. And this is why some anxious women are really controlling, and when you don't do what they want, they can be very nasty, very vicious, very emotionally manipulative, and just full-on emotionally abusive at times. And it goes really quickly from her seeming pleasant to just blowing up and nuking you. And it really does feel like after a certain point that it just is her anxiety driving the entire relationship. And I've talked to guys many, many times in coaching sessions and said, does it really just feel like you and your wife are sitting in the backseat of the car while your anxiety is just driving the whole relationship wherever that relationship wants to go? And I always get the response of like, yes, you get it. This is exactly what it is. I'm not happy. I know she's not happy, but everything just feels horribly out of control all the time because everything is run by her emotional state. So here is the most important point of this video. When you walk on eggshells around it, when you bow to her demands, when you are freaked out at her being angry at you, and then you immediately tuck your tail between your legs and then do exactly what she wants, you are sending her a message that her anxiety has a basis in reality. She's freaked out about things. She's anxious. And reality is, it's not quite so bad. But then you are also reacting to her anxiety. So you are confirming that probably reality is far more in line with what her anxiety is. You being freaked out means her anxiety feels and seems more real. She feels more justified in feeling anxious. And slowly over time, her anxiety levels increase. So let me say that again, making sure you really get this. If you are too nice, if you are too agreeable, too soft, too weak, you go along with it all, you walk on eggshells, her anxiety is slowly going to get worse. The other thing, if you've read my books, watched the prior videos, you also know that if you're just jumping through her hoops endlessly and bowing down before her and doing exactly what she wants, how she wants it, that's incredibly weak and unattractive, and also slowly over time she's going to lose attraction to you. So it's a horrible double whammy, because she's losing attraction as her anxiety is getting worse. And you can get to a really bad place fairly quickly, and you can really try and lock it in if you're not careful. The other thing I want you to take from this video is that her anxiety just sort of dovetails perfectly into creating fitness tests for you. Gotta understand, her anxiety has unreasonable expectations of things going wrong, unreasonable expectations of bad things happening. And to make herself feel better, feel less anxious, she makes unreasonable demands, unreasonable requests of you to make her feel better. And at times, she's also making these unreasonable demands in unreasonable tones of voice. And the defining feature of fitness tests is she's making unreasonable demands, or she's making demands in an unreasonable tone of voice. So these can come together very, very nicely as this perfect storm. So the question is, this is why you get, you must check in with me, every hour or something. You must be exactly where I want. You need to account for every sort of penny. Where is this missing $10 from the checking account? These are all crazy, unreasonable demands. So what do you do about them? Well, it's basically like passing any fitness test. You can't let her anxiety run the relationship, because it will just run the relationship into the ground. So 3-step process with special reference to anxiety in terms of passing these fitness tests. So step 1, you have to acknowledge her emotional state. Her anxiety feels real to her. It is a real thing. It is a real experience. She's feeling all these emotions in her body. They are real to her. They may not correspond with the reality, but the experience is real. And until you recognize and validate that she is feeling these emotions, she will never get past that place. Because if you don't validate the emotions, she doesn't think you're listening. She doesn't think you care. She doesn't think you understand. She doesn't think you heard her. So all that happens is she's going to double down on trying to communicate to you how she feels, which means she gets louder, more angry, more verbally aggressive, more nasty, more emotionally abusive, and all that sort of stuff. So you have to validate the emotions. I can see that you're anxious. I know you feel stressed out about this. I know you're upset about this. I totally see that, and I appreciate it. I know this thing worries you. Step 2 is you have to orientate her to the true reality of what the situation is. And essentially this is the part where you say no to something to her. I can't take 4 or 5 calls from you at work every day. It's starting to affect my work. My supervisor's starting to say things about it. You're making real trouble for me. I can't respond to 4 or 5 calls a day from work. I'm totally happy to talk to you once a day at lunchtime or something. I can't respond to text messages from you within 30 seconds to a minute all the time. Sometimes I'm in a meeting. Sometimes I'm driving. Sometimes I'm just in the bathroom. It's just, it's unreasonable that you get upset about this. You got to at least give me half an hour or something to respond. Don't freak out so quickly. And the third thing is you have to, again, close with emotions. Because you got to remember, her greatest fear is that everything's out of control. Maybe you don't love her. Maybe the relationship's going to blow up. She's powerless to stop all the bad things happening, and the worst things possible are you're not caring and everything falling apart. So you have to reinforce that you care about her, you love her, you are committed to the relationship, that this discussion you're having isn't putting the relationship in jeopardy. You are still wanting to be connected and committed. And that's really important. I mean, because you can have a big blowout fight where you are right and you win. But if you don't close it with that emotional connection move, she's just going to feel more anxious, even though you're right. Heck, she can win the fight. It can end with you apologizing and saying sorry and yes, I'll do the thing. But without that, no, I care, I love you, I'm committed, I want this relationship to work. Without that, she doesn't feel like she's won anything because she didn't get the one thing she wanted from the fight, which is a sense of you're connected, that you want this to work, that things aren't just going to blow up. She can have a giant fight with you and she can win the fight, and it just feels like a stepping stone towards the end of the relationship if she hasn't had some sort of emotional connection close. And ironically, you would think as you do this perhaps that her anxiety gets worse and worse. There's a giant blow up, massive meltdowns, and everything just spirals downwards. The complete opposite is true. The complete opposite is true. Does she get more emotional, more stressed out in the very short term as you start pushing back on some of the stuff? Yes, absolutely. I mean, that happens with any kind of change in behavior where you're starting to pass fitness tests. They always get more stressed out about it in the short term. But it can only take a handful of moments before their anxiety levels can start coming down because you seem so much more safe, secure, solid, committed. They can't stomp all over you, which means that you are strong. And that now means that they have a strong man in their life that then provides some degree of safety and security, taking away some of their anxiety. It really can make a difference. I mean, I'm not saying it's an instant fix overnight, but over a period of weeks and months, a lot of her anxiety can diminish simply by you not feeding into it, by not bowing and scraping before her like her anxiety is totally real and that she's justified in feeling all crazy and loopy about things. Slowly over time it can diminish as you are calm, steady, solid, relaxed, unflappable, and just something very real to you. Slowly over time things can improve and get better. So that is about it for today. I'm going to come back tomorrow and I'm going to talk a little more about her taking responsibility for the stuff that all predates you in the relationship. You know, the childhood stuff, what her first few boyfriends did or whatever it was, all the stuff that predates you, because some of the stuff she's anxious about has got nothing to do with you. So I think that's what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. So this was long, but I hope it was insightful and helpful. Like I say, there's so many moving parts to this, and they all connect. I felt like I had to do it in one video. So I will talk to you tomorrow.